Welcome to Keto Power Fitness. This is Claude, your health coach here to help. All right, I'm going to talk about COVID-19, the coronavirus. Just a few things. I want to keep this fairly brief. So the first thing I want to talk about is the virus's mechanism. So I think this is something that's important to understand. In a nutshell, this virus is very virulent. Okay, it's extremely contagious. From the data we have, a lot of people, the vast majority of people the vast majority of people will catch the virus at some point. And of those people that catch the virus, the vast majority will have fairly mild to moderate symptoms. Okay. Now, there's a minority that will get severe symptoms. And from the information I've been sorting through, the severe symptoms happen on kind of a second phase of the disease. That is, basically, you get the disease, your body doesn't recognize this virus because it's new, and it attaches to cells in your lungs. It can also attach itself to cells in your heart and in your gut. Okay. Now, what it does is that it penetrates into your cells and it uses the reproductive mechanisms inside your cells to reproduce itself. And when it does that, it incubates for a few days, and that can be anywhere from 2-3 days to 14 days, which is another problem, is that you may not show any symptoms until the virus comes out of incubation. Once it does come out of incubation, you get a bigger viral load. So you can get symptoms from catching the virus initially. Those symptoms will tend to be milder. Once your body is used by the virus to help it reproduce, you can get quite a virus load, which means you can also have quite a bit of the virus in you and in your lung tissue particularly. And what that does is that now your body starts to fight the virus, and amongst the things that your body does to fight the virus is that it attacks the cells that are being used by the virus to reproduce itself. Okay, so those cells don't serve you anymore. They've been modified by the virus to serve as a host to multiply the virus. So they need to be destroyed. But if your body's immune system comes in too violently to start destroying all those cells, it creates quite a bit of inflammation in the lungs, possibly in the heart, destroying heart tissue, in the gut. And obviously in the lungs and in the heart, it can have devastating effects. And this is what we've seen that the people that have died tend to die of. The people that survive also tend to have some pretty marked damage. It may be too early to call it permanent damage because this is fairly new, but possibly permanent damage to the lungs and to the heart tissue. So for the most part, we'll go through the age groups that are more vulnerable and the comorbidities here in a second. But just know that just because you're young, you're not immune to that effect. Okay, so keep that in mind. So that's that's kind of the mechanism that we've discovered that the virus uses, where it causes the most damage. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. And we're going to go to the data sheet. So by age as a factor of risk of death, okay? So this is the worst case scenario, obviously. And if we look here at death rate in all cases, so not just the confirmed cases, but the confirmed cases and the suspected cases. So in terms of age, and age isn't necessarily something you can do much about, but so 80 years and over, we're talking 14% death rate. That is huge. Okay, so 70 to 79 years old, 8%, also quite large. 60 69 year old, 3.6%. And then as soon as you hit the 50 to 59-year-old and down, it drops right down to 1.3%. 40 to 49-year-old, 0.4%. And below that, we're talking a 0.2% death rate, which is somewhat comparable to the seasonal flu, maybe being twice as much as a seasonal flu. But we suspect at this time that this is an estimate. We don't know how many cases are out there because in many, many countries, there just hasn't been enough testing to have a very clear figure on that. Okay, so I just wanted to show that. Now keep that in mind. With this virus, what seems to be very evident is almost exponentially, the older you are, the more vulnerable you are to this disease, okay, to the severe end of this disease. Just quickly, as far as which sex is more affected, it seems that males are almost twice as likely to die from COVID-19 than females. Why that isn't quite clear at this time, and not something you can do much about either. Okay. Now, this is the important part here. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, hypertension, and cancer. Okay. So if you've been following the keto diet and you've done a good job and it's helped you, one of the things that you'll notice is that you must have noticed as you lose fat, your tension tends to drop. As a matter of fact, if you're losing a lot of weight, that's definitely one of the things actually that you have to be careful of. Just, if you go to the hot tub or something, you get up too quick, or, initially you get quite a bit of drop in tension. So if you were had hypertension, it's certainly a way to counter that. Okay. Diabetes, obviously pre-diabetics, you can pretty much eliminate type 2 diabetes following this diet. So obviously if you've been at it for a while, it's helped get you away from those pre-existing conditions that make you at higher risk for COVID-19. Now, if you haven't adopted that yet, and now all this happening has had you think of your health and thinking of how you can protect yourself. Well, okay, so right now the whole world is promoting isolation. So the first thing you want to do, obviously, is avoid catching the virus in the first place. Now, statistically, you will probably catch it at some point. Okay, the disease has to work itself through the planet. And until we get herd immunity, we're talking anywhere from 60% to 80% of the population will have to have it before it stops being a problem, or it mutates away, or a vaccine comes out, or a cure. So all these things are possibilities, but chances are you'll have to confront the virus. Okay. Now you can put that off until you have a chance to prepare if you're not in very good health. One thing I'd like you to notice about these comorbidity is that typically these are the comorbidity that are get more frequent and more prevalent as as the population ages. Okay, so I'm going to go on a wild guess here, but I'm thinking age is probably not as much a factor. We're talking a correlation with age, whereas these comorbidities probably have more of a cause and effect relationship to the death rate of this disease. Okay. I think you probably, I mean, this is speculation, obviously, but you probably have a better chance of not dying from COVID-19 if you're older and healthy than if you're younger and have one of these comorbidity factors. Okay, to me that makes a lot of sense, which is why we're starting to read about cases in the States of younger people 20 to 40 years old that are dying from this disease. And now we know that the US population, by and large, has a lot of obesity, has a lot of type 2 diabetes, um, hypertension in even younger population. Okay. So definitely something to consider there. Now, one of the things you can do diet-wise, if you haven't adopted the keto diet, but you want to protect yourself from this virus, and I know a lot of people have been storing food, and it can be a little more difficult to store meat and animal fats. You need refrigeration. Not a lot of people have room for big freezers, and so when people store for the long term, if they think they might have to go a while without going to the grocery store, then they'll store pasta, rice. It's all these carbs, right? Beans. But one thing you can do, despite not using the high fat, low carb method of attaining ketosis, is intermittent fasting. Okay, now fasting has two benefits. It will tend to put you into ketosis, though if you're not on a keto diet, combining that with intermittent fasting, it can make it harder because you'll have, you'll eat those carbs, and then going a long time without eating, you'll get that glucose drop in the blood. It'll make you hungry. It'll make you really crave. So I think psychologically, it'll probably be um, quite a bit harder than if you train your body to run on fats, and you don't get that big drop, and it makes fasting almost a natural thing. But it is an option. It's an option prone by Dr. Fung, who did a lot of work on this, and so you don't have to necessarily eliminate all carbs. You can go to intermittent fasting, and that'll give you the weight loss. It'll give you um, the drop in hypertension. You got to make sure that you're getting, your minerals, your vitamins as well when you're doing that. If you're fasting, and so intermittent fasting, or having a fasting window where you'll eat from, say, anywhere from noon to 6 o'clock in the evening, and then not have breakfast, and then have your first meal at noon again the next day, can be an option. The second benefit of that is if going to the grocery is an issue because of everything that's happening right now, well, fasting will likely make your meals and the food that you've bought last a little longer. It is harder to eat, as you can't. It's really hard to cram 3 days, three meals plus snacks a day that you would normally eat into such a small eating window, because once you've eaten, you're just not that hungry to eat again. Then you gotta last out till the next eating window. Okay, so instead of trying to make your food last by eating little tiny portions all day long, which will work against you, it'll make you hungrier in the long term, and you're not going to get the beneficial effects of ketosis. Then you restrict your eating window, but you eat the food that you have um, as you can. And so you can get the benefits from ketosis that way without having to change the entire diet in such a short amount of time. Okay, now if you need coaching in order to do that, or if you're have the means to make the changeover to a different diet, give us a call. Actually, write us an email, info@ketopower.fitness, and we'll be quite happy to answer your messages, answer your questions, and give you some sound advice. Okay, so that's about what we can tell you for now. Things are progressing, so uh, as I learn new information that can be useful, I'll pass that on. In the meantime, stay safe, isolate yourself. That'll help the healthcare system manage the cases that they are dealing with without getting overloaded. And we'll wait to see what happens next. Okay, you guys take care and have a great day.